Hello learners, welcome to another session. So today we'll be dealing with two topics. The first topic is bilingualism and the second is multilingualism. So what is bilingualism? So bilingualism, if you break up the word, bi refers to two and lingualism refers to languages. So it is the competence of someone to communicate in two languages. And they are able to competently do it in both languages and they do it with ease. So Hamers and Blank in 1983, they defined bilingualism as the ability to access or use more than one language as a means of communication. So most of us in today's world are bilingual. We have a mother tongue. We have one language for learning, and we also have a language for speaking. So most of us are kind of quite bilingual. So the concept and to define a person as bilingual, what is required? So age and manner of language acquisition is there, and you can also see that the proficiency level in a specific level in a language is also taken into consideration, and the domain of language use. This is also considered, and self-identification and attitude of the learner is also taken into consideration to term a person as bilingual. So moving further, we see the classification of bilingualism. So bilingualism is classified in the following manner: successive bilingualism, simultaneous bilingualism, additive bilingualism, subtractive bilingualism. So in the following slides, we'll be seeing an explanation of each of this category of what is successful bilingualism, what is simultaneous bilingualism, what is additive bilingualism, and what is subtractive bilingualism. So let's start off with successive bilingualism. So successive bilingualism is the acquisition of two languages after 3 years, when the child turns three. So it is similar to the acquisition of the first language, and over here, active hypothesizing of rules, analyzing rules, making errors, and revising the rules all takes place in this stage. And we also see that the stages of acquisition is quite similar to how you started learning your first language. So first we started off with uttering one word, and then we moved on to two words, and then it became multilingual. So just like how we did acquire our first language, the process is the same even while acquiring the second language. So here entirely the first language is learned first, and then the second language is learned. So I hope you are clear about successive bilingualism. What is simultaneous bilingualism? Simultaneous bilingualism is when children are able to acquire the first and the second language at the same time. So there's no lapse or gap between the acquisition process. So simultaneously both the languages are learned. While successive, it's one after the other. Here, language learning of two languages takes place simultaneously. So moving on to the third classification of bilingualism, which is additive bilingualism. So in additive bilingualism, there is no such dividing line. The individual learner, in the same environment and context, they often learn, both the languages, and when they learn both, they are able to, imbibe the aspects of both language. They have positive attitude towards their native language. They thoroughly enjoy learning the nuances of both the languages, and one is not considered superior to the other. Both are level or on par with each other, and they are learned together. Whereas in subtractive bilingualism, it is quite different. We see that in subtractive bilingualism, the individual learner begins to separate, the two languages, and they start comparing the two languages. And often it is found that a negative attitude is formed towards the native language. So we see that they start considering that the second language which they acquire is far superior than the native language or the mother tongue which they already have been learning. So here we see that there is a subtraction, or there's a change in attitude of the learner towards one of the languages. So this is the classification of bilingualism. So now let's move on to see the types of bilingual. So there are two types of bilinguals. One are compound bilinguals, the others are coordinate bilinguals. So compound bilinguals, they learn two language in the same context. Coordinate bilinguals, they learn language in two different contexts. So here context is the main criteria which differentiates between the bilinguals. One is they learn both the language under the same environment. They learn it together, whereas in coordinate they learn it in two different contexts. So what is the purpose of bilingualism? One, the purpose is for interacting informally and casually with the speakers of language two, and the next is to interact with the speakers of language two even in the formal setting. And mostly, a second language is learned for the purpose of academic development. Mostly it is for reading books, for writing journals, for writing articles, to listen to, some lectures or talks. And we see that, they also learn the second language to get access to both print and electronic media. And also we see another purpose is for professional and administrative purposes. So usually, for learning, for reading legal documents, and for taking up professions, people learn the second language. And we also see some of them learn the second language to interact with their peer group, both in casual and in informal as well as in formal contexts. So these were some of the purposes, or the reasons why people learn a second language. So what are the models of bilingual education? So there's a submersion model, there's a transitional bilingualism, there's heritage language programs, the language exposure time model program, and the deficit model. So what are the benefits of bilingualism? So it does have certain, advantage for people who are bilingual. So, like they have cognitive flexibility, meaning they are more creative and they are flexible in their thinking. We also see that they have meta-linguistic awareness. So, they have language awareness is far greater than others who are monolingual. And communicative sensibility also is there. When they communicate proficiently, and they also, are independent. They have analytical skills, they have communicative skills, they have thinking, and visual perception is also far greater than the monolinguals. We also say that cognitive reserve, meaning that they are able to, retain the language, and it's believed through researches that, usually human brain, it starts declining in cognitive function as we age. But people who are bilingual, it says that it delays their natural decline of cognition function. So the brain functions better when they are aging. And we also see that they have verbal as well as non-verbal intelligence, which is far better than the monolingualism monolinguals. And we also see one more advantage for them in the real life situation is employability. They have no greater advantage when it comes to employment, and we see that they are able to speak in two different languages, and they are able to get the job of their dreams. But still there are some problems of bilingualism, which is like negative transfer, code switching, and code mixing. So what is negative transfer? In negative transfer, we see that the structure of L1 tends to interfere with the acquisition of L2. So they tend to, structurally they get confused with the L1 and the L2 language. And when it comes to code mixing, one language structure is mixed with the other. So, they tend to confuse in the delivery of speech. And we also see code switching. Sometimes there are, speakers who speak alternatively in both the languages. They don't thoroughly communicate in one language, they jump from one language to another. So this becomes a problem for the bilinguals. So I hope all of you have understood about bilingualism. Now let's move on to multilingualism. So multilingualism, just like bilingualism, where the learner knows two languages, here the learner knows more than one language. It's mostly more than two or 3 or 4 languages. So over here, the reasons why they do it is maybe for personal, for social, or for intersubjective reasons. They become multilingual. So they are able to switch between various languages. They are able to speak, they are able to read and write in multiple languages. And we also say that terms that are used to denote to people who adopt multilingualism are bilingualism, polylingualism, plurilingualism, diglossia, and languages in contact. So generic term for multilingual people is called as polyglot. So polyglot is a person who is able to speak in more than a single language and who knows many languages. So polyglot is taken from the Greek word, and over here poly means many and glot means language, whereas the opposite of them are monolinguals or monoglots. So the types of multilingualism are personal multilingualism and social multilingualism. So personal multilingualism refers to knowledge and verbal behavior of an individual and it's not shared by the community, whereas social multilingualism is where the entire nation or the society or the group they practice speaking in more than one language, and this is usually for the sustenance of those languages. And we see that the kinds of multilingualism are elite, just for the sake of formal setting, and at times it's for the school setup. We see that elite multilingualism is followed, and the other is neighborhood. So just in the neighboring setup, people might be speaking in different languages. So just to have a form of communication with the neighborhood people start becoming multilingual. And we also say that multilingualism and cognition, they have one close relation, whereas code switching, we already saw what was code switching. Code switching also happens in multilingualism, and it also maximizes the multilingual's ability to convey their message, and they are able to solve crossword puzzles very, very well. And the nature of multilingualism is it is universal in its nature. It is based on the needs of the society, and maybe sometimes it's forced. It is circumstantial also, and sometimes it may be additive or subtractive, and mostly it is also done willfully by the learner. And some of the reasons for multilingualism is because people migrate from one region to another and they are forced to learn the new language. And we also see that it spreads more on a social linguistic level rather than on a individual level. So what is the scope? So the scope of multilingualism is it's spread over various fields. So they are like education, personal, social, professional, administrational, judicial. So you see, it has a wide scope. It's not limited to any one field. So you find multilingualism prevalent everywhere. So what are the benefits of multilingualism? So being a multilingual, it helps you gain more job opportunities. It improves your intellect. Also increases your understanding of different languages. And we are living in a global village, so it does benefit us when we travel. So these are the main benefits of being a multilingual. So today we saw about bilingualism and multilingualism. We saw the various types, we saw the classifications, we also saw what is the scope, we saw what the benefits of being multilingual and bilingual. So hope all of you continue to enhance your language. So happy learning all of you. Thank you for joining today's session.